Honestly can't believe that I yapped at y'all for like an hour and a half last time. I'm so sorry. Hey folks, my name is Jen, and today we are going to talk about the worst books that I read in 2024. I thought I had 5. I have 4 books here that I have to talk about, and then I have a bunch of what I usually call my dishonorable mentions, which are basically books that I DNF'd. So I think what we'll do, as per usual, we will go into the dishonorable mentions first, and then we'll get into the actual books. But first up in the dishonorable mentions, we have something a little bit different. It is a book that I did indeed read. Hi Banks. So I was gonna be here. This book, while I did read it, it honestly was not a good experience for me. I did just want to mention it, even though I think for the most part, probably a me problem. So the book in question is Good Poems for Hard Times. These are poems selected by Garrison Keillor. He also selected the poems for Good Poems, which is a collection of poetry that I know I've talked about a couple of times because I've read it a couple of times. So Good Poems for Hard Times are selected specifically for hard times. I had wanted to get this other collection for a while, and then because I was having, quite honestly, a really shitty year last year, I figured now's the time to read that because this will probably help me feel better, right? Did not. That is why it's kind of on this list. It might seem unfair because, quite honestly, I don't think it's this selection's fault necessarily. I think it is more I was just not in the right headspace for that particular collection of poetry. But I found absolutely nothing comforting in those poems at all. They were all pretty bleak and depressing, while sometimes I have been lately gravitating towards things that are a little more angsty, mostly music-wise and stuff. Still, at the time, I was looking for some kind of wisdom or hope, and I did not find it in those pages at all. It was quite bleak, and I in fact felt worse after I finished reading it. Again, I don't think it's this collection's fault necessarily. I just say I was not in the right headspace for it, and I would say if you plan on reading that collection, keep in mind where your head is at the time, and just kind of, I don't know, maybe take a look-see at a couple of poems and see if you are gonna feel okay going through it, because it says for hard times, but I don't know, it wasn't good for my hard times at all. So I DNF'd a bunch of books this past year. Not as many as like the year before, I think, but there were a few. First up was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. It's a dark academia book. This was part of my Am I Being Too Judgy experiment with reading books that I've either DNF'd before for maybe petty reasons, or have said either publicly on here or personally in my life to lots of people that I know who care to listen, that I will never read it because of XYZ reasons. And this was a no. Basically, I could not be arsed to read this. I listened to about 40 minutes to an hour of an audiobook, and quite honestly, could not. I found the main protagonist, who is narrating the story, I found him to be completely and utterly narcissistic and pretentious, and just all around way too much to handle. Yeah, did not like him, and I can handle reading about a shitty individual, but I tend to have a little bit of a harder time wanting to waste my time on someone who is shitty being the narrator of a book. I hate being inside their head for that long. I don't mind if it's like a villain in a chapter or two, but for the whole, I hate having the whole book in their head. Did not like him, did not like the writing style, which I know is supposed to be closely held with him, so the writing style in general felt pretentious, but I think that might be more about the narrator as he was. And I just, you know, got to a point listening to that audiobook that I was like, do I really give a shit about a bunch of rich, pretentious dweebs at their prestigious school pretending that they are living a total bacchanal life? No, I fucking don't. So yeah, DNF that. Then I had a disappointing DNF, which was Iceberg by Clive Cussler. Honestly, I was already having, like, not a good time with that one because Cussler, for some reason, thought it was a good idea to have Dirk pretend that he was, like, flamboyantly gay for some reason. The reason was kind of stated in there. Apparently Dirk thought it would lull this creepy guy into a false sense of security for something? I don't know. There is plenty of people who have taken looks at Dirk, and it is stated in the book that they see a killer in his eyes, even sometimes when he is smiling, which that's, you know, creepy. But yeah, so I don't see how him putting on some kind of caricature is going to do anything, and I don't know. I felt it was like a weak reasoning, and so that was bothering me. It's 1970s logic, I guess. I was already having like a really hard time getting through this story because that was bothering me. And the final straw was when a female coworker of Dirk Pitt's got justifiably angry at him and their boss because of something stupid that they did, and, you know, she went off at them and walked away, and then the boss responded by saying, "What's with her? She on the rag?" Yeah, I was done. I was done. And I also, again, with the am I too judgy, I decided to try a dark romance. I made like a short list of dark romances that have been fairly popular, and this was the first one that I tried out. It was Priest by Sierra Simone, about a priest. It's told in through his point of view, getting all kinds of sexy times with a young new parishioner of his. That gave me all kinds of icky feelings. Firstly, as someone who was raised Catholic, even if I no longer consider myself to be Catholic or a part of Christianity at all, there is still a level of like that old Catholic superstition within me. And reading about a priest ramming a girl on the altar, just, it feels like a get struck by lightning moment, and I was like not really having it. It made me feel kind of icky in general. That, and just a lot of details in that book. It was bringing up like a lot of stuff for me that I was like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Something else I also found incredibly disturbing was the priest using biblical terms to justify his actions, such as they were, or especially him calling the girl his lost little lamb, like he was some kind of shepherd. That whole thing, it just was an extra level of not okay, and it really call this like an escalation. But in my brain, just reading about people like that think that, you know, this is how they're gonna do things, this is how we end up with crazy people starting their own church, and eventually the FBI has to fucking go raid their compound or something. Like, it's just, it's not good. I didn't like that. It was an extra level of not okay, because this young woman came to him as a vulnerable person who was just looking for a little bit of help and guidance, and he definitely 100% took advantage of that. I did not like that. So yeah, I DNF'd that because no fucking thank you. But I do have that short list of dark romances, so you might hear about another one or two or three in the future. I don't know, I'm gonna give another couple of others a chance. The next one that I DNF'd was also kind of a disappointment. It was Come Tell Me How You Live by Agatha Christie. Now, I like Agatha Christie's writing. I really love, I would say, the majority of her mysteries that I have read so far, but boy howdy, did I not like how she talked about her travels. Come Tell Me How You Live is her memoir of travels with her second husband, who is an archaeologist. They're traveling throughout the Middle East, and quite honestly, I don't know, between that and Perfume from Provence that I read last year, and a couple other like old celebrity things that I'm reading right now, I'm starting to honestly have a bit of disdain for rich English people in the past and their old-timey racist snobbery about people who are native to the land that they're fucking visiting. I've always been kind of bothered by it, but I'm definitely starting to have a healthy amount of disdain for it. Now, I don't know. The breaking point in this book for me, besides being bothered by a lot of the commentary, the breaking point was when an employee of theirs did something that was annoying, but her husband decided to go on a rant and say that he understood why this employee's people, they're all refugees, he understood why these people were being genocided. I was out fucking immediately. And then the last couple that I DNF'd were just recently over in December. Another one, Am I Too Judgy? I decided to try another holiday romance because I never seem to have any success with those. So I picked up Christmas Land by Amory Meyer. And it was basically a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I really hate those with a burning red. So I tried, honestly. I probably could have given it a little more chance, but I was just having a miserable time with it, and I just gave up. Funny enough, in my December wrap-up that just came out, I think I mentioned that, my feeling about that, when I was talking about it, that it just kind of felt like a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I was just hating on that, basically. Funnily enough, when I was then looking up that book so I could, like, I was trying to Google, like, the image of the cover so I could pop it in the video, I found out while I was looking it up that it is indeed, it has been made into a Hallmark movie fairly recently, so validation! And then the last thing that I DNF'd was Christmas is Murder by Val McDermid. This was a collection of holiday-themed mystery stories. Honestly, I barely even made it out of the first part. I just kind of realized that I didn't give a shit about the main characters, and B, I was actually kind of having trouble following the story. I don't know if it was just like how it was written, how much stuff was happening or not happening. I don't know what my problem was. So because that was just kind of meh, I think I might give that author another try, just with a different book. I did just hear about a nonfiction book that this author wrote about forensics, so I might end up checking that one out instead and see if I have a better time with her in general. But yeah, I just could not be arsed with Christmas is Murder. I have 4 reads that I've counted as my worst of the year. I didn't really have that many that I had as like 2 or 3 star books this year. But these were just the worst of them. Number 4 is maybe me being a little bit too harsh, I don't know, but it was one of the more worst things that I've read this year, so I figured I'd mention it. It is lower on the list because I'm probably being too picky about it, but I mean, it counted among some of the worser things that I read this year, so here we are. Number 4 was The Goonies. This is a movie novelization. I really like collecting movie novelizations, and I 100% know that they're not like the greatest literary things ever that have been written. They're just kind of there for entertainment, and I kind of had a thing about like trying to collect them when I was a kid because it's about this movie that I really like, and you know. So, I think my problem with this movie novelization overall was just kind of how outdated it is. And I mean, in general, the movie is like, it's been a little bit since I've watched it, but it, I think it probably doesn't really hold up that well. But it is a cult classic from the 80s. Definitely has that 80s feel to it. There's a ton of nostalgia surrounding like the movie, so I mean I can't really talk a lot of shit about a movie that I myself have enjoyed. I think my problem with this is that it somehow felt even more outdated than the movie, and I think that might be due to the narration of Mikey. He is telling the story here. Chunk tells there's like a chapter or two that he's telling it because that's when they get split up. I mean, one good thing about this is that oftentimes with movie novelizations, they are told from the point of view of one of the main characters, and whoever's writing it is trying really hard to like mimic that voice that they had in the movie, which that's admirable. But some of the things in this that Mikey came out with, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We're getting some of his like inner thoughts, I think, a little bit in the movie, but we're getting all the inner thoughts in this book, and they just kind of ended up rubbing me the wrong way. Yeah, not the most enjoyable movie novelization I've ever read. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you are someone who this is like one of your favorite movies ever, you'd probably be interested in like reading this book. But if you are more like a casual watcher, like, you know, you enjoy the movie, but it's just kind of whatever, I mean, I would say maybe just skip the novelization. Just watch the movie again. Just watch the movie again. Yeah. Oh, number 3. Number 3 is the amount of disappointment that I feel towards this book. Number 3 is Raise the Titanic by Clive Cussler. So pretty much my whole life, my dad has been super into the Titanic. Like, its construction, the sinking of it, the finding and the salvaging of items. Like, he has been, like, super into that for as far back as I can remember. I have been listening to him talk about it. He has showed me the big book by Robert Ballard all about this. We watched the movie when it came out. I mean, I wasn't allowed to watch one part of it when it first came out, but like, you know, he's always been wicked into that, and he's always also wicked been into Clive Cussler novels. And my interest in both the Titanic and Clive Cussler novels are 100% from my dad. So for years, I have heard about Raise the Titanic. Like how the movie was okay, but the book was really cool. He had misplaced his copy somewhere, couldn't find it. So I heard about it all these years as I was going through his shelves and reading some of his other collections. And, you know, I always thought to myself, man, I really want to get my hands on a copy of that someday and read it. When I found this book in a secondhand shop, I was like wicked excited. I had it all planned out. I set it aside to read in April around like the anniversary. I didn't end up finishing reading this until like, what was that, June, I think. Oh boy. I mean, I was super excited about. This is a dark pit adventure. They're searching for the Titanic, and they're trying to raise it from its undersea grave. I mean, like, how cool is that? This sounds pretty cool, right? Of course, this is back when they thought that it was still in one piece. Let me tell you, talk about a drag for most of this book. There was a little bit of excitement here and there, finding an instrument that was from the Titanic, finding other things. Oh, there's a ship. Like, little exciting parts here and there, but like most of the book was honestly such a drag. I'm gonna spoil portions of this book, and I honestly really don't care because this was fucking disappointment. I mean, it's quite obvious they're gonna raise the Titanic. Spoiler, you can tell from the cover. They don't even do like any cool stuff new, but into the last quarter of this book. And it was honestly fairly anticlimactic, and there was not nearly enough description about the interior. Like, we had a little bit of description about the interior when the crews are actually able to step on board the ship, but like, the thing is, I know this is like pre-Ballard discovery. It's before they found it. So what you have here is Cussler's imagination and whatever historic records that he could get his hands on, I imagine. With the photographs that were taken, there are quite a lot of photographs online before the ship sailed that you can still like see pictures of, but it's not of like everything on the boat. So we have that, we have the schematics obviously, and accounts by other people of what the boat was like. So we don't have like a ton to work off of, I know, but there could have been more. There should have been more. It's like built up this whole time about this stupid fucking boat, and then we barely even spend any time on it. It was such an absolute disappointment. Like, we spent the entire book preparing for this, and it barely saw just diddly squad. That coupled with this subplot about the unhappy marriage of side characters, as well as such incredibly stereotypical Russian baddies, it felt like Cussler was ripping off Ian Fleming or something. It just overall added to my lackluster reading of this book. There is honestly also a really unnecessarily ethically questionable and ridiculously written sex scene in here, which it occurs near the end of the book and also is so unsanitary. It gave me the fucking heebie-jeebies. This was just so bothersome. And the thing is that I think the one thing that got this like a 3-star rather than a 2 or something for me were the descriptions of the ship that we had, as well as this very like super gnarly thing that occurs near the end of the book, which was very Poe-esque, and I loved it. Like I said, it was gnarly as fuck, and I enjoyed it a lot. So that was pretty good, but the thing is that overall this book was just such a disappointment. And there was also some like really 1970s like bro talk about liberated females that made this liberated female want to grab those men by their tiny hairs. Like, I was not into it. What made me madder, I guess, besides all of that, was again just the sheer disappointment that I had about reading this. Like, I have been looking forward to this book for so long, and it was such an ultimate letdown. I don't know. Maybe I held this a little too high in my head. Number 2 was unfortunately another Clive Cussler book. This one being Dragon. The reason why this one is a little bit higher up than the great disappointment that I just talked about is because I found this to be overall more inaccurate and yucky than the last one. Sure, the tech that was in here was wicked cool. I really liked a lot of the action scenes, and I enjoyed the banter between Dirk and Al. Like, Dirk and Al's friendship is quite honestly the best part of this series of Cusslers. Like, they're really enjoyable. So that was good. The problem with this is that Dirk was still being such a misogynistic dickhead in this book. Like, I don't know what it is with some of these earlier ones. They are just not a good time. And Hal, honestly, was no better. Based on something that he pulled a little bit later on in the novel. So, not very happy with that overall. My biggest problem, though, has to do with a major part of the plot. So, Dirk and Al are trying to stop an attack by the Japanese, or rather, it's a corrupt bunch of Japanese nationalists who have been building nukes and are readying them to like set loose on the world, mostly with their like competitors in the world. I said this in my OG review and I'm gonna say it again. I cannot possibly suspend my disbelief that much to buy any part of this particular plot. I am not Japanese. I was not raised there. I have not lived there. I don't honestly know anyone personally I think that is Japanese. I'm not an expert. But I have been interested in Japan and also consuming a chunk of their media for a couple of decades now. And the amount of a terror of destruction and the warnings of hubris and war that is still so very prevalent in all their media. Like, World War II fucked them up in a big way. Like, they are still honestly reeling from that, and it really shows in their manga, their anime, their novels. Like, it really shows. So there is just absolutely no way that I can buy some crazy rich dudes thinking even a little bit about risking their own people's lives or fucking their country up is a good way to do things again. Because that's what's going to happen in the process of this. Like, I just can't buy that. I just don't buy it. And I know the argument is that, well, this book series, I mean, it's not real life, obviously, and it's set a few years in the future, so you don't know, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, it is technically supposed to be our world. The tech is a little more advanced in some cases, but again, this is supposed to be set, like, I don't know, 8 to 10 years in the future, from whatever current date the book is coming out, so like, he is intending this to be our world, just a little bit ahead in the timeline. I don't know. This book is just supposed to be plausible, and I didn't find it to be plausible at all. Quite honestly, it kind of felt like it was written by a boomer who was sentient during the attack on Pearl Harbor, and that that's accurate. It is. I checked his birth date. 100% accurate. So yeah. The top worst. So then we get to number 1. This rant's gonna be a little bit longer. The worst book that I read this year was The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. The one good thing I can say about this book is that it is incredibly readable and highly entertaining. Like, it's well written in the sense that it is a page turner, and I was very engaged while reading this. But honestly, this entire book is a giant pile of horse shit. Now, I'm saying this 100% as someone who fully believes in ghosts and the supernatural. I think there is way more to the universe than we can even comprehend at this juncture. I think there's way more to the world than the eye can see, 100%. But the thing is that I'm also as skeptical as hell. I guess you could put me solidly between a Scully and a Mulder. When I say I believe in ghosts, the reason why I actually believe in them is because I've had my own experiences. And that still doesn't mean that I believe every single ghost story is true. I think a lot of them could be logically explained away. Now, this book, it's one of the least logical things I've ever read. It is all about sensationalism. Like, this was 100% capitalizing upon a nation that was already up in arms and fucking terrified. The previous, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before, by the Exorcist movie. So everybody, and I have talked to my parents about the world when The Exorcist came out, and they said that people were out there thinking they were getting possessed in movie theaters. Like, people were crazy at the time. People honestly were 100% primed for this story. So the Lutz family having experiences and then abandoning their home 28 days after moving in was just, like, clearly a story to tell. I'm not 100% negating what happened to the Lutzes because I wasn't there. I don't know. I, quite honestly think something probably did happen to them. I think that locations, when they have gone through truly horrific events, hold on to some of that horror. And sometimes pieces of that get repeated back at people, whether it is a supernatural thing or whether it is just, there's a reason why people get the creeps in dungeons and swear they hear gunshots at Gettysburg. Like, history emanates, man. So, did they have weird experiences at this house? Probably they did. I think they probably did have some weird experiences, and I also think that the fact that a familial side happened the previous year affected them subconsciously than they were really willing to admit. But that's just my theory. I highly doubt, though, that a demon made phantom flies and sludgy toilets happen, and I highly doubt also that they made a rando priest go blind. No, I don't buy it. Besides my disdain for this book being so sensationalized and also a crock of shit, I do have a couple of other more significant issues with this in general. The continued perpetuation of rumors about the murdered DeFeo family is really gross. There is no proof that anyone in the family was abusive. There is no proof that anything evil was happening within that house other than, family arguments and shit like that. There is no proof that anyone else in that house helped murder or did the murders other than Ronnie Jr. And the thing is that Ronnie DeFeo Jr. kept making up different tales until the day he died. There are weird details about this case. If you've ever heard anything about it, you've looked into it at all, the murders. There's weird details, granted. But the thing is that most likely we will never get answers to those. And I'm sure even if there are answers, it is probably the most easiest, simple answer ever. But we're all up in arms about, oh my god, there's something supernatural instead. Having some sensationalized book about a floating demon pig who plays with creepy little girls and whispered to a dude about shoot his whole family is already kind of like wacky in general, without adding to gross accusations about the people who died. The people who were actually killed in this entire thing. Like, that's really gross. They're not here to defend themselves. Plus, there's like this whole underlying thing about possibly his lawyer was involved with trying to get it out that he's crazy or there's supernatural forces. It's a whole complicated thing. If you want to learn more about it, there are so many podcasts that cover the Amityville, both the murders and this. So take your pick, basically. Problem number 2 was that there's also some really gross accusations about a native tribe, which the author fully named. I'm not going to name them because what the fuck, that's stupid. Yeah, author made some accusations about a native tribe that the reason why this land in this neighborhood is so messed up is because this particular tribe was known to like either bury or like completely abandon to die like their sick or mentally unstable members of their tribe, which by the way is 100% not true. Like that's just not a thing that happened. So also gross. And the final nail in this spooky little coffin for me, honestly, was the inclusions of the Warrens at the end of this. I dislike the Warrens because A, I think that they were grifters who took advantage of vulnerable people who desperately needed their help. B, I think they were self-righteous liars who were searching for fame and did whatever they could to make sure that they got some. And C, they fucked up parapsychology a lot. Just adding to it overall being like the laughing stock of scientific fields. So I'm also mad at them about that. The Warrens showing up like they always do, barging in, screaming demons at the top of their lungs. Yeah, I thought this book was already fake prior to them arriving, and they were just that final cherry on top that said this is a crock of shit. The Conjuring version of the Warrens is like much more palatable, you guys. The real ones just sucked the moon right out the sky. So now that I have offended probably a couple of different groups of people, I'm gonna end this video. Thank you for watching, I guess. I hope this one is a little bit shorter than my other one. I'm so sorry that that one was long, you guys. I just got on a rant. Let me know if you also have read these books. Let me know if you also had a problem with them. Let me know if you have a problem with me for having a problem with them, I guess. You can do that too. Let me know too, what were your worst reads this year? Were these on your list as well? Any of these? Or what did you have on your list instead? Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for always watching. If you are new here and would like to subscribe, I swear I have less negative things most of the time. This is just one of my ranty videos. Well, I take that back. If I don't like something, you'll probably hear about it in my monthly wrap-ups too. But yeah, if you're new and would like to subscribe, please do so. I will see you guys in the next video.